and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and this is World Today. It is 6 p.m. in New Delhi, 8:30 in the morning in Washington, D.C. and it's 8:30 in the evening in Beijing, where the Chinese government is pushing back against the World Health Organization's call for a new investigation into the origin and spread of the coronavirus from Wuhan to all corners of the world. Meanwhile, in an interview to DD India, the Foreign Minister of Maldives and President-elect of the UN General Assembly, Abdullah Shahid, says the world must examine the origins of the virus, if only to know what it takes to prevent future pandemics. Also on the show, after creating a worldwide furor, now Amnesty International does a U-turn on the Pegasus data leak. Says it had only made a quote-unquote potential list of targets. The statement reads, I quote, "The data is irrefutably linked to potential targets of NSO Group's Pegasus spyware." We get you the details. All that and much more coming up over the next 1 hour. But first, as always, the headlines. China rebuffs WHO's call for further COVID-19 origins study. WHO urges Beijing to be transparent and open, asks it to cooperate with investigators and provide raw patient data that had not been shared during the first probe. Amnesty International makes a U-turn on Pegasus data leak report, says it had only made a potential target list. Widespread condemnation of the biased media reporting based on this speculative list. Over 192 million tests positive for the coronavirus globally, more than 175 million recover. The deadly virus claims over 4.14 million lives. The US remains the worst affected. And grand opening of Olympic Games at Tokyo on Friday. Ahead of the opening ceremony, its director is removed. The Indian contingent to be restricted to 50 members only at the opening ceremony. All right, then let's get started. First up, the big news from Asia. China says it rejects a World Health Organization plan for the study of COVID-19 origins. The WHO plans to conduct phase 2 of an investigation into the origin of the coronavirus in order to determine whether the virus could have escaped from a Chinese laboratory in Wuhan. More in the next report.
China has once again rejected the call for investigation despite countries' repeated requests, and this time it is the most direct pushback. Beijing has blocked the World Health Organization's call for a new investigation into the origins of the coronavirus. China on July 22 rejected the World Health Organization's plan for the second phase of an investigation into the origin of the coronavirus, which includes the hypothesis that it could have escaped from a Chinese laboratory. The Wuhan laboratory at the center of the controversy has once again said, never had the virus. The WHO this month proposed a second phase of studies into the origin of the coronavirus in China, including audits of laboratories and markets in the city of Wuhan, calling for transparency from authorities. The head of the WHO said earlier in July that investigations into the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic in China were being hampered by the lack of raw data on the first days of the spread there.
We are asking actually China to be transparent, open, and cooperate.
The head of the World Health Organization on Thursday said that investigations into the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic in China were being hampered by the lack of raw data on the first days of spread there, and urged the country to be more transparent. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus also said there was a premature push to ignore the theory that the virus may have escaped from a Wuhan laboratory.
There was a premature push to, especially reduce one of the options, like the lab theory. As you know, I was a lab technician myself. I'm an immunologist, and I have worked in the lab. And lab accidents happen. It's common. I have seen it happening, and I myself had errors. So it can happen. And we need information, direct information on what the situation of these labs was before and at the start of the pandemic.
Permanent representatives of 48 countries to the United Nations Office at Geneva addressed to World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus and voiced their support to advance the study of the origins of the COVID-19 globally and opposed the politicization of the origin tracing. The diplomats stressed that COVID-19 is a common enemy of mankind and it can only be defeated by solidarity and cooperation of the international community. The diplomats said the study of the origins is a matter of science and should be conducted around the world by scientists. A joint report in March by a WHO-led team that spent 4 weeks in and around Wuhan with Chinese researchers said that the virus had probably been transmitted from bats to humans through another animal. The first known cases emerged in the central Chinese city of Wuhan in December 2019. The virus was believed to have jumped to humans from animals being sold for food at a city market. World Today Desk, DD India.
Now, even as China opposes the probe, Maldives Foreign Minister and President-elect of the United Nations General Assembly, Abdullah Shahid, says the world must not stop looking into the origins of the coronavirus. He tells DD India in an interview in New Delhi that the international community should do everything possible to properly deal with the current pandemic and draw the right lessons from it in order to be better prepared for pandemics in the future. Take a listen. Mr. Minister, as the President-elect of the United Nations General Assembly, do you have a view on the origin and spread of the coronavirus? The WHO, for instance, is calling for a new study on the origins of the virus. So do you have a view as the President-elect or as the Foreign Minister of the Maldives?
As President-elect, I do not have a view. I think it should be the experts who should come up with this. For the President of the General Assembly or the Foreign Minister of the Maldives to prejudge on these things would be very dangerous.
Is a study warranted in your estimation? That there is a need to go into how the virus originated and spread so quickly to all corners of the world?
We should not stop exploring into this pandemic in order to prevent future pandemics. I think we should do everything possible to make sure that we deal with this pandemic properly and learn lessons so that in the future we would all be better prepared. We have seen the loss and the pain that this has brought in.
Stay tuned to DD India for the complete interview. Right, moving on, here's my colleague Munmun Bhattacharya with the latest on this developing story. Take a listen. Try to play that full video in just a bit if time permits. But if I can ask my producers, can we go to the guest on the program, or do we wait for Munmun's video?
It comes as no surprise really that China has rejected WHO's call or plan for a second phase of the probe into the origins of COVID-19 because, as has been alleged by several experts and scientists around the world, China has not been transparent from the word go as far as this probe into the origins of COVID-19 is concerned. Here we can recall the fact that even For 4 days after China had informed Wuhan officials about the outbreak, it had not informed the WHO that such an outbreak had taken place in around December 2019. Having said that, even after informing the WHO, it did not allow a WHO team to enter into China for a preliminary investigation into what really had happened there over visa issues. And in the meantime, it had cleaned allegedly several traces of what really could help in understanding the origins of COVID-19. Having said that, there were limitations of the first phase of the probe as well, because the mandate that the probe team had was restricted only to investigating the zoonotic origins of the virus. That means that it was limited to investigating whether this virus had its origin in wildlife and then moved on to humans later. It did not look at the other possibilities. The mandate did not ask the probe team to look into the other possibilities of, say, a lab leak or any other possibility that may have led to the COVID-19 virus. Besides that, the terms of reference of the probe were also flawed, because in the terms of reference it was written that if China has already investigated certain things, then the probe team will accept those findings as it is. They will not vet those findings, and they will not question those findings. They will not carry out a further probe into those findings. The DG of WHO has also said that it is important that China share raw data with the investigation team, and that is important to arrive at the truth around the origins of COVID-19. He has also talked about the need to look at the possibility of a lab leak. He said that he's been a lab technician himself, he's been an immunologist himself. Lab leaks do happen, and thus it is premature at this point in time to rule out any link between the COVID-19 pandemic and the lab leak possibility. A probe into the origins of COVID-19 has to be full and unrestricted in nature. It has to ensure that all the relevant records of the laboratories and of the markets in Wuhan and other parts of China are available to the probe team. Only then will that make for a proper probe into the investigations of COVID-19 origin. But China is not allowing that. It has been non-transparent so far. It continues to be non-transparent.
Right, joining me is Mr. Pinak Ranjan Chakravarti, a former Indian ambassador to the Philippines, Bangladesh and Thailand. He is a visiting fellow with the Observer Research Foundation, a privately held think tank headquartered in New Delhi, where he oversees the West Asia Initiative, Bangladesh and selected ASEAN-related issues. Ambassador, welcome to DD India. Now, the WHO chief says, I want a new probe, what he calls phase 2 of my investigation. China says, no. Is China hiding something in your estimation? If so, what could it be?
Well, prima facie, China may be hiding something because of its refusal to allow further investigation. We have a saying in India which we normally use in Hindi, ki chor ke dari mein tinka. I mean that if you have something to hide, then you take these very, nationalistic upfront positions, which is what the Chinese are trying to take, and denying that there was ever any infection among the workers there initially, before it spread.
Right.
Now, according to the USA, there has been reports that 3 Chinese lab workers in Wuhan fell sick. Now, nobody knows really what really happened to them or why did they fall sick. So there are some circumstantial evidence which needs to be followed up. And WHO has done the right thing to request that let's conduct a phase 2 so that we know exactly what happened. After all, it is not something that happens daily. And China has been stonewalling for a very long time. And it is quite irresponsible on the part of China to do so. And it is trying so many tricks. I mean, it produced or got produced, papers which said that, it came into China through frozen food, and that was one line of inquiry, and they produced papers also to peddle that line. Then now they are saying that, if investigation of Wuhan has to be done, then the lab at Fort Derrick in the USA must also be investigated. Other labs around the world has to be investigated. Now, these are obviously so clearly and transparently, techniques of obfuscation that it really doesn't hold any water.
Absolutely. Ambassador Chakravarti, now the WHO chief, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, says the logic or the rationale for asking for a new investigation or phase 2 of the probe, as he calls it, is to inquire or determine whether the virus could have leaked from a laboratory, possibly in Wuhan. Now, what do you make of the lab leak theory, given the fact that the WHO chief himself said in the report that we just showed to our viewers that accidents do happen in a laboratory?
Absolutely, as accidents do happen, where there are so many instances of accidents, and it is, it is not beyond the realm of probability that there was a leak from the laboratory. After they were, investigating and experimenting with these kind of viruses, and clearly it is. Now, what I also understand, though I am no expert, is that the virus doesn't seem natural in the sense that there is some man-made element into it, and that can only happen in a laboratory. And that is why the investigation, the international call for investigation is growing, because we really need to know what really happened. Because if they don't, and China definitely has something to hide, I think there is no doubt about it.
Ambassador Chakravarti, you said that the international, the chorus of opinion is building up for a probe into the Wuhan virus, as some people choose to call it. It began with the US and Australia, other countries joined in, and most recently the Maldives foreign minister, who is now the president-elect of the United Nations General Assembly, told your channel that he is in favor of exploring the origins of the virus impartially, scientifically, if only to draw the right lessons from it so that we can prevent future pandemics. So what could possibly be the reason or the rationale for China to say, sorry, it's a no-go for us?
Well, it's a kind of a nationalistic stand. Two things basically: a nationalistic stand, like who is the who? Sorry for the pun, to investigate us. That is the kind of stand. And secondly, if they were transparent and allow the investigation, it might actually lead to the discovery that there was a leakage in the laboratory. So I think these are some of the factors, and by not agreeing, or rather resisting, and vigorously and arrogantly, and the WHO demand or request for investigation, China is clearly, playing its cards in the manner that, shows that it has something to hide.
Indeed. Ambassador Chakravarti, now the US, Biden in particular, independent of the WHO probe, has asked his intelligence officials to prepare a dossier, a report, and get back to him within 90 days. And that could that time period could end sometime next month, in the month of August. Now, as an ambassador, as a former diplomat, what do you think the US might be looking for, independent of the WHO probe?
I'm sure the US has enough, means at its command for picking up clues here, there. Maybe they have transcripts of telephone conversations that was taking place at that time in Wuhan. I don't know what they have. But basically, knowing their methods of investigation, they would certainly rely on reports that have emanated from Wuhan, first-hand reports and other things.
Right.
Who knows, they may even have people who, I believe they do have people who worked there, or they will tap into people some foreigners who are working there, or the Chinese who are working there, whatever the methods. They will have to come up, because it's a presidential directive, and they'll have to give him some clues and conclusions as to what they think. And I believe that the Wuhan lab leak theory will not be ruled out. That is my view.
Indeed. On that note, Ambassador Chakravarti, thank you once again for making time for us here on World Today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right, let's now take a look at some COVID-19 numbers from around the world. Now, this is how it stacks up. So far, more than 192 million people worldwide have tested positive for the coronavirus. Over 175 million have recovered. The deadly virus has claimed over 4.14 million lives globally. The US continues to be the worst affected, as many as 35.1 million people in the country are infected. The virus has claimed over 625,000 lives in the US. Right, moving on, the leader of Britain's opposition Labour Party, Keir Starmer, says UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is a quote-unquote super spreader of confusion. Addressing Johnson during the Prime Minister's questions in the British legislature, Starmer made the comment when asking for clarity on an upcoming plan to require vaccinations for entry into nightclubs. Johnson was answering questions via video link while he self-isolates after exposure to his Health Minister Sajid Javid, who tested positive for COVID-19.
So, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to creating confusion, the Prime Minister is a super spreader. So let me try to get some clarity. Why is it okay? Why is it okay to go to a nightclub for the next 6 weeks without proof of a vaccine or a test, and then from September it will only be okay to get into a nightclub if you've got a vaccine ID card?
Right, across the Atlantic in the US, infectious diseases expert Dr. Anthony Fauci says the Delta variant is the cause of 80% of COVID-19 cases in the country. But he adds that vaccines remain more than 90% effective in preventing hospitalization and death. The Delta variant of COVID-19 has become the dominant version of the virus in the United States and more than 90 other countries. Now, as per the director of U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Rochelle Walensky, the COVID-19 deaths in the U.S. have averaged 239 per day over the past week, nearly 48% higher than the previous week. And down under in Australia, COVID cases again surged despite a week-long lockdown. Officials warned of a further spike in infections and death toll. Australia's most populous state, New South Wales, alone reported record new cases for this year and the highest in 16 months. Sydney, which is in the 4th week of lockdown, reported most of these cases. The country is battling to tackle an uptick in cases of the highly contagious Delta variant. Australia has over 32,400 cases of the disease, with the death toll standing above 900. Police in the South American country of Peru dismantled an alleged criminal ring that had charged as much as $21,000 per bed for COVID patients in a state-run hospital. As many as 9 people, including administrators of Lima's Almenara Public Hospital, have been arrested for their alleged involvement. The scam was uncovered after police received a complaint from the brother of a man suffering from COVID-19, who was asked to shell out nearly $21,000 to obtain an ICU bed and treatment at the hospital. Right, and the next big story we're tracking here is the U-turn by Amnesty on the Pegasus data leak. Now, I'm joined by my colleague Arun Sharma. Arun, fill us in on the details.
Now, we know this fact that there are 3 important stakeholders as far as Amnesty International's U-turn is concerned. The number 1 stakeholder is Amnesty International itself.
Right.
Now, till 20th July, Amnesty International was claiming that there are close to 50,000 people who might have been their privacy might have been breached, their phone might have been breached as far as privacy is concerned. Now, taking a U-turn, now Amnesty International is saying that these people are the potential threats. That means there is an intent, there is a possibility, this is an indicative list of 50,000 people whose data might be breached by the governments all across the world. So this was a U-turn taken by Amnesty International. Now, on the other side, the NSO. Now, NSO is a company that provides the Pegasus software worldwide. Now, the NSO is over here is clearly claiming this point that the list that everybody is talking about about that the data of these 50,000 people have been breached. Now this list does not exist. On the other side, NSO is also claiming this point that it does not have the capacity. That means the Pegasus software does not have the capacity to operationalize 50,000 devices in a single year, because the capacity of the Pegasus software is to test only 100 mobile phones or 100 devices in 1 year. And the clients of the NSO are close to 45 countries all across the world. So it is not practically possible that via Pegasus software this breaching might have taken place. So this is completely invalid point which certain media agencies as of now are claiming. So third stakeholder is the media agencies or the media organizations like The Wire in India. We know this fact that even Washington Post, The Wire for that matter in India, they came out with a fake narrative primarily, and they gave a sense to the readers and of course the citizens of the country that the data of 50,000 people were breached globally. They also gave a sense, they also created a fake narrative that primarily the data of Indian journalists, politicians, opposition leaders, they have been breached. But on the contrary, the thin line over here is that Amnesty International, while testing some of these devices in their own forensic lab, after the testing they are claiming this point that these are the only potential threats. That means they are the threat and they might be, the breach might take place as far as these people are concerned. But whether the breach has taken place, whether the privacy has been breached, this is a hazy line primarily. And no report primarily backs this point that whether any kind of privacy breach has taken place or not. So this is a kind of fake narrative, a fake agenda that has been created by Amnesty International, now taking a U-turn because of the fact that there is no report primarily to back the forensic report or the other report, and that's the reason now Amnesty International taking a U-turn now.
And Arun, I'll come back to you momentarily. Let's first play out the report on the U-turn by Amnesty International on the Pegasus data leak. Take a look.
Highly sensational story was published by a web portal on the 18th July 2021. Many over-the-top allegations have been made around this story. Honorable Chairman Sir, the press reports have appeared a day before the monsoon session of Parliament. This cannot be a coincidence, Honorable Chairman Sir. In the past, similar claims were made regarding the use of Pegasus on WhatsApp. Those reports had no factual basis and were categorically denied by all parties, including the Supreme Court. The press reports of 18 July 2021 also appear to be an attempt to malign the Indian democracy and its well-established institutions.
Government of India making it clear that recent media reports around the use of Pegasus software are of malicious intent. A list of 50,000 names whose mobile phone devices were allegedly targeted by spyware Pegasus was revealed as part of the Pegasus project. Amnesty International Security Lab provided forensic analysis and technical support for the project, while a media consortium conducted the investigation. However, Amnesty International continues what some may call double-speak, saying the data is irrefutably linked to potential targets of NSO Group's Pegasus spyware.
NSO, the company which builds the spyware, has denied that this is not a list of their customer and has no corroborative evidence of any connection between the list which is in circulation or their customers. Amnesty International has denied about this list, and yet opposition has continued to disrupt the House on a fake list. Repeatedly, these kinds of narratives are built only to damage the reputation of India, so that the new ecosystem which government is trying to create to secure the data of Indians.
In a statement in Rajya Sabha, Communication and IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav has also stated the publisher of the report states that it cannot say if the numbers in the published list were under surveillance. The company whose technology was allegedly used has denied these claims outrightly, and the time-tested processes in our country are well established to ensure that unauthorized surveillance does not occur. When we look at this issue through the prism of logic, it clearly emerges that there is no substance behind this sensationalism. Lambasting the media reports, senior advisor in the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Kanchan Gupta, said that laughable, snooping story was spun around an indicative list manufactured by Amnesty International.
Amnesty International has issued a clarification, a statement saying that they have not, the list which has been released by them, the 50,000 global list of 50,000 names or telephone numbers, that has not been sourced from the company. That it was a list generated by Amnesty International. So this is a list which was sort of conjured out of the hat, and then on the basis of that list, this entire story was spun around it, that these are the people who were snooped on or who were the potential targets of snooping. Then we are told 37 handsets using 37 of these numbers were allegedly tested in Amnesty's laboratory.
Okay.
Now we don't know what is Amnesty's lab, where is it, I mean what kind of a lab it is, and according to Amnesty International, the tests show that there are traces of snooping or the possible attempt to snoop found on these 37 handsets.
Foreign journalists also questioned Amnesty International. Investigative journalist from Bloomberg, Ryan Gallagher, tweeted, "Some clarity is definitely needed on the origin of the 50,000 phone number list and the link to NSO. Did a whistleblower inside NSO disclose the numbers? Were they indeed hacked from an NSO server? If the latter, can technical evidence be produced tying the server to NSO?" While The Wire continues publishing list after list of potential targets, it has so far failed to provide any proof to back these claims. And the timing of this so-called expose, which broke the night before the monsoon session of Parliament, adds to the murky waters of the Pegasus Project snoop list. Bureau Report, DD India.
Right, my colleague Arun continues to be with us. Arun, very quickly, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the word potential means that the people mentioned in this report were not necessarily spied upon. And what does that tell you about those media organizations, those 16 or 17 media organizations that actually broke the story? What does it tell you about their lack of due diligence, lack of a rigor of analysis, or plain and simple bias?
So let me break down your question into two parts. When we talk about the media, yes, there was no fact check that took place. So when Washington Post or The Wire, when they published this entire story, because there was a collaboration between the Wire news agency and of course the other international media organization. So when The Wire came out with the story, most of the news organization, without doing any fact check, started publishing the same story.
Right.
Now the word indicative or potential was ignored at every level by all the media organization. So if somebody is going by a car, just for an example, Ramesh, there is a possibility that that car might meet with an accident. But that does not mean that this car will definitely meet with an accident. So there is a difference between a possibility and there is no possibility. So Amnesty International now says that there is a possibility of a threat. This is an indicative list. That means these influential people might be threat to the government, and therefore government might snoop the data. So this is just a speculation, just to get a juicy headline, just to get a TRP item, and just to create a fake agenda, just to malign the government, to demolish the democratic setup and institution in country like India. These kind of fake narrative and agenda took place, and in that context it is very much important primarily to do proper fact checking the way we do at each and every level, Ramesh.
Indeed, clearly some people somewhere need to brush up on their English. On that note, Arun, thank you once again for joining us on World Today. Appreciate it. Right, moving on, as Iran faces a dearth of COVID vaccines, a large number of Iranians travel to neighboring Armenia, where the tourists are being provided free COVID vaccine jabs. The Armenian Tourism Committee said more than 8,500 Iranian citizens had visited the country in June, up from 5,000 a month earlier. The build-up of overnight queues prompted the authorities to tighten vaccine rules. As of 15th July, foreigners can only be inoculated in Armenia with the AstraZeneca vaccine and must spend 10 days in the country before becoming eligible. Now, Armenia, with a population of nearly 3 million, had administered more than 260,000 doses of vaccines so far. Moving on, scientists at the US Space Agency NASA said the Mars rover Perseverance is about to begin its historic hunt for signs of ancient life on the red planet. The rover has been working 7 days a week to test and practice with its various sophisticated instruments, which will start taking soil samples soon from the Jezero crater, which scientists believe was once a lake bed about 40 kilometers wide and possibly caked with dried mud that may hold evidence of potential primitive life. Scientists believe the meteor impact that formed the Jezero crater likely created an environment friendly to life. It says the rover's instrument revealed the crater contains clays which only form in the presence of water. And NASA scientists say the experiment will help provide future missions oxygen for human astronauts to breathe. Now the news, wildfires raging across the western United States and Canada, as well as a 2-week-old blaze in the US state of Oregon, continue to belch smoke and soot and cause harmful air pollution. Satellite images from space show smoke of US western wildfires in 13 states, where more than 80 large active wildfires have charred almost 1.3 million acres of drought-parched vegetation in recent weeks. Several hundred additional fires have burned in western and central Canada. People in distant cities were feeling the air contamination in their eyes, nose and lungs. Meanwhile, London on Wednesday sweltered in the summer heat as a heat wave continued across many parts of the United Kingdom. Temperatures in London hit 30 degrees Celsius, sending people to seek refuge in the shade and cool down with ice creams. Some people have expressed concerns that the hot weather was a consequence of climate change. Britain's Met Office said unusually high temperatures are expected in western areas, and continuing high nighttime temperatures created potential risks to health. A total of 127 athletes across 18 sports disciplines from India will feature in the Tokyo Olympics. Now, this is the biggest ever contingent India is sending to any Olympics. Union Sports Minister urged people to encourage the Indian athletes representing India at Tokyo.
With a victory punch, the Union Sports Minister, who is also having INB portfolio, has sent his greetings for Team India. I have with me the Minister Anurag Thakur. Let's talk to him and find out. First, let's have your punch for Team India. There you see the punch. This is the largest contingent, so a lot of expectations are there. But I saw you calling parliamentarians across the party lines, "Arey bhai, aa jao, this is for Team India." So that was a very good gesture.
I think with the sheer hard work, dedication, determination, discipline of our athletes, they were able to make it to the Olympics, and this is the largest contingent ever. Now, as a duty, as a sports minister, as a citizen of India, what all we can do? Not all of us can go to Japan, but our best wishes should reach out to our athletes. For the morale boosting, I've started a campaign, Hamara Victory Punch. And on those lines, let's cheer for India. So make a video of yours with your family, friends or colleagues. I did the same thing with my parliament colleagues, the fellow parliamentarians from different political parties. All of us have come together for the Hamara Victory Punch video and also to join the Prime Minister's Cheer for India campaign.
Would you also like to go to Japan and at least watch some of the Team India matches?
I won't be traveling to Japan, but our best wishes to all the athletes who are participating. I'm sure they're going to give their best efforts, play with a free mind, with full efforts, and bring glory to the nation.
One last question. You've been a keen sportsman yourself also. So what are the disciplines that you would be watching?
I'll try to watch as much as I can because the parliament session depends on the timings of the events as well. So we can wake up early, start watching some events, but surely tomorrow I'm going to join for the opening ceremony in the afternoon.
So there you heard the minister. He has given his victory punch, and he says that despite of all my engagements, he would be getting up early to cheer from Team India from here itself. With cameraman RK in Delhi, this is Vishal Baristo for DD India.
And let me also give my victory punch. Let's all cheer for India and may Team India win the best of medals at the Tokyo Olympics. Right, and staying on with the news, Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs Anurag Thakur also launched a campaign called Hamara Victory Punch. Many celebrities enthusiastically participated in that campaign. Take a look.
ठाकुर और मेरे साथ मेरे साथी सांसद भारतीय खिलाड़ियों का ओलंपिक्स में मनोबल बढ़ाने के लिए हम सब लोग इकट्ठे हुए हैं और ये रहा हमारा विक्ट्री पंच।
Union Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs Anurag Thakur has encouraged everyone to cheer for Team India at the Tokyo Olympics while rolling out the campaign Hamara Victory Punch. Cheering for Team India from outside the Parliament House along with other MPs, Anurag Thakur has urged people to cheer for Team India and tag 5 friends and family members to show their support for Indian contingent at the Tokyo Olympics. Launching the campaign Hamara Victory Punch, Union Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs tweeted, Hamara Victory Punch by parliamentarians across party lines, a show of support and wishes from the temple of democracy for Indian Olympic team at Tokyo 2020. Have you posted your victory punch yet? Hashtag cheer for India and send your wishes to our amazing athletes in Tokyo. Actor Akshay Kumar also joined the campaign while cheering for Team India.
मुझे यकीन है कि हमारी ढेर सारी एनकरेजमेंट और दुआओं से हमारे खिलाड़ी टोक्यो ओलंपिक्स में हमारे देश का नाम रोशन करेंगे। मेरी टीम है आप सब अकियंस। तो अकियंस आप भी अपना वीडियो बनाइए अपनी टीम के साथ और हैशटैग चीयर फॉर इंडिया के साथ उसे सोशल मीडिया पे पोस्ट कीजिए। अपने 5 दोस्तों को टैग करना मत भूलिएगा। याद रखिए भारत की जीत, भारत की हार, हम सबको देना है भारत का साथ।
While Kiran Rijiju, Minister of Law and Justice, also joined in.
To support and encourage our Indian players in the Tokyo Olympics, here is our victory punch.
Cheer for India! Former tennis player Leander Paes and cricketer Krunal Pandya also showed their support for the Indian contingent at Tokyo Olympics.
Hi, let's support our Indian contingent at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. Cheer for India. Hamara Victory Punch.
आओ अपनी आवाज में जोश बढ़ाएं, स्टेडियम ना सही कहीं से भी अपना एथलीट का हौसला बढ़ाएं। Come on India, let's cheer for India.
The Indian contingent will represent the country in the Tokyo Olympics slated to kickstart from the 23rd of July 2021. A total of 127 athletes across 18 sports disciplines from India will feature in the upcoming Tokyo Olympics, making it to the biggest ever contingent India to send in any Olympics so far. Sports Desk, DD India.
Now, the Indian contingent at Tokyo Olympics will see a blend of youth and experience, all with hopes of bagging a medal at the Olympic Games. Now, the largest Indian contingent ever this time further showcases the prowess of Indian sporting landscape on an international platform. Now, one of the oldest sports, wrestling, has always been an integral part of India's Olympics glory. The next report, we bring you all you need to know about the Indian wrestling contingent at the Tokyo Olympics.
India has sent a 7-member wrestling contingent to the 2021 Tokyo Olympics. The Indian wrestling contingent comprises of 4 women and 3 men, and they compete at the Olympic Games starting the 23rd of July. The wrestlers in the contingent are undoubtedly in contention for medals at the Tokyo Games. The entire contingent comprising 4 women and 3 men will compete in various categories. If we talk about the men's squad, stalwart Bajrang Punia will compete in the 65 kg category, whereas Ravi Kumar Dahiya will compete in the 57 kg category and Deepak Punia in 86 kg category. And in the women's squad, medal hopeful Vinesh Phogat will fight in the 53 kg category. The others who will compete are Seema Bisla in 50 kg, Anshu Malik in 57 kg and Sonal Malik in 62 kg categories. Wrestling as a sporting discipline has been part of the Olympic Games since 1896. Independent India won their first Olympic medal through wrestling with the legendary K.D. Jadhav winning the men's 57 kg freestyle bronze medal in the 1952 Helsinki Games. Following that success though, India was unable to win any subsequent medal in wrestling for more than half a century. That drought was eventually broken at the 2008 Beijing Olympics when Sushil Kumar won the bronze medal. He followed that up with a silver around his neck 4 years later at the London Olympics to become the only Indian athlete to win more than one Olympic medal for an individual sport. Sushil's teammate Yogeshwar Dutt also tasted Olympic glory as he bagged a bronze medal in the 2012 London Games. Sakshi Malik became India's first female wrestler to win a medal at the Olympic Games. Sakshi won the bronze in the women's 58 kg category at the 2016 Rio Olympics. India boasts of some of the finest men and women's grapplers of today, with the likes of Bajrang Punia and Vinesh Fogart expected to lead from the front at the Tokyo Games. Sports Desk, DD India.
All right, now take a look at our News at Glance segment.
UNESCO on Wednesday said that the English city of Liverpool has been stripped of its World Heritage status after years of development near its Victorian docks. It makes Liverpool the third site to be removed from the prestigious list. After a vote in China by members of its World Heritage Committee, UNESCO took to Twitter and said that Liverpool should be deleted from the International Cultural Organization's list. The vote means that Liverpool will lose the status it has held since 2004, that saw it placed alongside world-famous sites like the Taj Mahal and Great Wall of China. The heritage label gives historic sites access to UN conservation funding as well as featuring in tourist guidebooks across the world. Former Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein on Wednesday pleaded not guilty to charges of rape and sexual assault involving 5 women in Los Angeles ahead of a second trial. Weinstein, who is 69, arrived at Los Angeles Superior Court for his first appearance after being extradited from New York, where he was serving 23 years in prison for rape and other sexual offences. Weinstein has denied having non-consensual sex with anyone and is appealing his 2020 New York conviction and sentence. In Los Angeles, he faces 11 charges of attacking 5 women between 2004 to 2013. If convicted, Weinstein could spend the rest of his life in prison. NASA's scientists have informed that their Mars rover Perseverance is about to begin its historic hunt for signs of ancient life on the Red Planet. The rover has been working 7 days a week to test and practice with its various sophisticated instruments, which will start taking soil samples soon from the Jezero crater, which scientists believe was once a lake bed about 40 kilometers wide and possibly caked with dried mud that may hold evidence of potential primitive life. Scientists believe that the meteor impact that formed the Jezero crater likely created an environment friendly to life. It says that the rover's instrument revealed that the crater contains clays which only form in the presence of water. The rover has done 3 mock runs to date. NASA scientists say that the experiment will help provide oxygen to future missions for human astronauts to breathe. World Today Desk, DD India.
Now, to know about some events that took place on this day, that's 22nd July, watch Today in History.
On July 22nd in 1917, Alexander Kerensky became the Prime Minister of Russia. He succeeded from Prince Lvov. Kerensky was a lawyer and revolutionary who played a key role in the Russian Revolution of 1917. On the same day in year 1934, FBI agents shot dead John Dillinger, the famed US bank robber, outside Chicago's Biograph Theater after 13 months on the run. Dillinger led a group known as the Dillinger Gang, which was accused of robbing 24 banks and 4 police stations. On this day in 1990, Mongolians voted in country's first free elections. Mongolian Revolution of 1990 was a peaceful democratic movement that started with hunger strikes and demonstrations to overthrow Mongolian People's Republic. On the very same day in year 1998, American Michael Dwayne Johnson anchored the US 4x400 meter relay team with Jeremy Young, Antonio Pettigrew and Tyree Washington to a win and set a world record of 2 minutes 54 seconds and 20 nanoseconds. On this day in 2010, actor Sylvester Stallone and Dolph Lundgren were awarded world record for the movie Rocky. The two received an award from the Guinness Book of World Records for creating the most successful sports franchise in film. World Today Desk, TD India.
Right, time now for the Beyond Headlines segment. Take a look.
Breaking the age-old practice, dozens of female soldiers have become part of the security services that monitor pilgrims in Mecca and Medina. It is for the first time that a group of Saudi women soldiers are posted in Islam's holiest sites where they help secure the Hajj annual pilgrimage. The female soldiers can be seen dressed in a military khaki uniform, a hip-length jacket, loose trousers and a black beret over a veil covering their hair. Masked pilgrims hurled pebbles at a giant wall in a symbolic stoning of the devil ritual on Wednesday for the second day of 3, while others performed the farewell walk around the Kaaba during the final part of this year's Hajj. Back in Mecca, Muslims walked around the Kaaba to perform a religious rite that is usually done in the final phases of the Hajj. Doing what you love is the cornerstone of having abundance in life. In Argentina, a centenarian grandpa, Hernan Mastrangelo, has proved this proverb. Mastrangelo has been catching eyeballs of netizens after it emerged that for years he had been taking handwritten notes of almost every goal scored by local hero and Barcelona star Lionel Messi. Mastrangelo is a chocolate maker by profession. He made it as his hobby to keep track of each of Messi's goals. Meanwhile, Lionel Messi, who recently celebrated winning the Copa America with Argentina, recorded and sent a video message of thanks. A non-profit organization in Colombia has been training rural children to identify anti-personnel mines near their communities. During the country's civil war, landmines were placed by armed groups throughout conflict zones. Since 2013, the trust has created programs to deactivate anti-personnel mines in the regions of Antigua, Meta, Tolima, Cauca, Val del Cauca, Nariño and Putumayo. They also teach children and their communities about the risks of these mines and what to do if they find one. According to the trust, around 12,000 people have been injured or lost their lives because of undetonated explosives. Japanese fighter pilots drew the 5 Olympic rings over Tokyo in a practice flight with Tokyo Olympics underway. It was a rare festivity surrounding the COVID-19 hit Olympics. Jets from the Japan Air Self-Defense Force Aerobatic Squadron, nicknamed the Blue Impulse, drew 5 rings over mostly clear skies in the capital. The jets were also sighted flying in the vicinity of landmarks like the Tokyo Tower and Olympic Stadium. According to the JSDF, the rings will bear the original Olympic colors of blue, yellow, black, green and red on Friday. Argentina has rolled out identification cards for non-binary citizens who neither identify as male nor female, allowing them to use X in their important national ID document and passports in the field corresponding to gender. The South American country is the first in the region to enable this via decree, adding it was joining countries such as New Zealand, Canada and Australia. The use of the X has already been accepted by the International Civil Aviation Organization and includes people who identify outside traditional